and all the reactions of people on the street, they are immediate. They come immediately. Yes, there's something wrong in the parliament. You have people on the street, and in most cases there is not enough time to react for this with the image. But there are some gatherings of designers. Demokracja ilustrowana, illustrating democracy. It's like internet-based base of designers. Then they can immediately upload some design to the website, and they are free. Everyone can print this and go with the poster or with some message on the street. So there are some mechanisms to be active, to appear on the street. But in most cases, they are kind of weak images. But from time to time, something jumps out, and we had a really great example of a poster which immediately became a history, and it was done by Luka Rajski. It's just called Konstytucja, with some accented parts of the Konstytucja where it's written you and me, in fact, in translation. So, and this poster became an iconic poster, and is reproduced in hundreds of thousands of copies. It's on the T-shirts. It was even the base for the actions. So the monuments were dressed with T-shirts with this word, because Constitution is right now, you know, very important, and the major party tries to manipulate with Constitution. So we think that our democracy is in danger. Yes. So, but yeah, that's basically what I can say about this. Do you want to add?
As you see, the society is divided into parts, and it's because of the politics, of course, and because of the point of view. But luckily, we have sort of possibility to speak our freedoms. We have freedom of speech. We can express our point of view. We can express our attitude. So the paradox is that this attitude was different before 1989, when Polish poster was really popular, because artists had to express themselves within posters to hide a communication, to hide the news in the poster. And that's why they use this visual language to pass a hidden information in it. And now we can easily say something with poster, we can easily communicate, but hardly ever we use a metaphor. And in previous days in Polish poster it was possible to use metaphor because there was censorship. Now there's no censorship, and people are just communicating one-to-one. So this is the main difference, the freedom of speech. The time has changed, and this brought us to the point where the poster has a different role and a different source of passing information.
I would like to add only this, that we live in modern times, and we have Facebook and all of the things that are connected with internet. And being a graphic designer give us also a possibility to express ourselves quite quickly. So it doesn't matter if we are in Poland or if you are in Israel, you can do graphics that are widely exposed in internet, and they are connected with things that bothers you. It doesn't matter if it is political or social or ecological subject. If something is happening, you can really fast answer this what is bothering you.
Sorry, I think we didn't answer the question.
I don't know anything about the history of the Polish posters, so I don't know this question. You asked about the Polish style, no?
Yeah, you could say I asked about this, but maybe I'll go back to just to something that you said, and I think it resonates what you said in your talk, whereby there are different forms of the poster, you could say today, and that what you spoke about, this poster that you could download and print and put in public space, is maybe a kind of a bridging mechanism between this social media, which at some point we become not necessarily blind to it, but emotionally a little bit passive towards it. And then when we see it in public space, this is how technology maybe helps us.
I have something to add about. So a poster in the end is a platform to communicate like other platforms that we know in visual communication. And in a way, I talked about it a bit in my talk about, you know, how the rules, the current rules have changed. For example, there is a really nice project by Yoko Ono and John Lennon that it's called ImaginePeace.com, and they have made a really famous poster back at 69, I think. It was "The War is Over, if you want it," and in their website they put the posters in that poster, and I didn't mistake, it wasn't a mistake, it was posters, because they translate the poster into more than 100 languages, and you can download an official PDF of the poster. So what does it mean that, you know, we used to maybe go to print places and print it and put it on the street, when now it's all about the communication has changed with maybe our audience that we are thinking of. So everyone can download it. It's like an open source. Or if you have a lot of followers on Facebook and you can put it, any poster, any design. I don't know if it's a poster. We are talking now in terminology of a poster. So more than, I don't know, like 1,000, or, you know, it really depends on your followers, can see it without, I don't know, like printing it or spending money on it. So everything is changing.
Thanks for that. Over the last 20 years, in Israel, there is a renaissance of type design, mainly based on the advent of digital technology and desktop publishing. And there was a question here also if there is Israeli design, and I would actually say that there is Israeli design, because once you are using a distinct language, which has its own idioms and slang, etc., it conditions your design to some degree. And I'm wondering if you see this process in Poland, if you are in dialogue with professional type designers, and how their work maybe affects your designs, how you manipulate it or use it, and how the Polish language perhaps affords you, you know, we have these, especially with the political posters like Lava Levi's and Tartakovers, etc., you see a lot of word games or quotes which are a little bit manipulated for the new meanings.
I will start with
or Yossi Levin's also.
I will start with renaissance of localism, which also has a connection to your previous question. We also have right now a quite big group of designers that are focused on type design, and they dig like crazy in the roots of Polish old letterings. They search for inspirations in the history, and sometimes it becomes political because when it comes to you know, constitute some kind of national climate, which is really close to nationalism, it becomes kind of weird, yes. So, and and then it's sponsored by certain institutions. So we have, so it's hard to disconnect such scenarios. Yes, but in fact we have explosion of new forms, of new letters. There are some great young designers doing that, and they exchange with us their projects. So sometimes we use new typefaces in our design just to test it, just to help them to display that there is something new, or we comment how it's done on the close Facebook groups. So more or less we know what is going on. But sorry, what was the question?
I think you answered it. I was thinking about also how Polish culture at large is expressed maybe through different genres of poster design that we
yeah, coming back.
It's a big question.
Yeah, it's a big question. I will just, because this direction to locality for many times produced kind of strange forms. There was one designer, his name was Poltavski. He was obsessed with the creation of really Polish typeface. Because you have some kind of weird connections in Polish language. There's many connections between W and Epsilon, and they produce really not nice lights in between. So he, produced rounded letters, and it was meant to be, national Polish typeface to minimalize bad things connected to the language. And of course, from our perspective, it is just weird idea. We are in the global world. Why to produce local Polish alphabet? But the fact is that I saw it in Justyna's presentation in some letters. It looks nice. It doesn't look old-fashioned, but this idea never came back. I mean, that was just one obsessed man who did that. But there are some local projects like Warsaw typefaces. It was, I think, inspired or organized by our friend René Waszkiewicz, and a few young designers just were walking around and was like type spotting around Warsaw, looking for local colors and flavors, and they created a bunch of new typefaces. You can download them from the sites for free. The basic forms are for free, and designers are using them in their design. But if you want to have the wider range of styles, you have to pay for this. But and there were a few things like that. Where's the? Oh.
Yes, thank you.
He doesn't use the Polish typeface, so.
He likes to
I don't know what to say.
Thank you. Maybe a bit about pedagogy. Two of you teach? Three you teach, right? How does one maybe teach poster design today? Is there some sort of methodology that you employ? What can you say to students today about this perhaps medium?
We should start.
I'm teaching actually with Lech Majewski, and I really agree with him that where do you come from and who you are is important, that you should not, if you want to be a poster artist, not just fulfill clients' wishes, you have to keep your personality, you have to keep your nationality, you have to know who you are and where do you come from and what are your emotions. And then if you will keep it, then if you have some, skills, then combining those two elements, you can make a good poster. So somehow identity is important. That's what I would say.
I'm trying to teach my students this, what I mostly showed in my presentation. It means not stopping on the first results, preparing as many possible variation as is possible during the time you have, and trying to to move forward with the projects, not being happy with 3 or 5 results, but taking variations and trying to always to go forward. It doesn't matter if it is a poster, a logo, or a layout, because quite many of the students, they come with 1 or 2 ideas. They expect that I will choose the best one, and then in 1 or 2 hours they will have the finished result. And it's not like that. If you want to be a good designer, you have to put much more effort in it.
Very difficult question. I think there are 2 kinds of people coming to art schools. I teach on 2 kinds of schools. One is Academy of Art, and motivation of a student at the beginning is, I want to be an artist. So they have certain skills, manual skills. They are, and there is a different talk with them. Yes, we have to respect their sensitivity, their eyes, their own character. But there are schools like Polish-Japanese Academy of Technology of Information, very long name, and they expect to get tips and tricks, how it works, rhetorical figures, yes, connections with meanings, and there is a limited time. So I think I teach various kinds of techniques. So, but of course, the major problem is thinking. It's sometimes impossible to teach someone how to think when he has 20-something years, and because it's too late. If the elementary school doesn't open something, then it's sometimes lost. And the second problem is engagement. How they can make posters if they are not engaged in anything. I mean, that's impossible. So sometimes the work is not about poster, sometimes it's just to talk, what are you interested in? I mean, what makes you happy or unhappy? Where's the resistance?
Thank you for that answer. I can identify. We also, in this country, we have an educational system, and I think as educators we receive students who could have maybe gotten more out of their high school education and come perhaps more prepared and with more critical thinking. So I think we spend the first year or 2 discussing these topics as well. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about tools. I think throughout the discussions today we saw how each of you works, and we all as designers have at our dispense modern technology, and also the history of design from letterpress to chromolithographs, and we can kind of in this postmodernist age mix and match. And I'm wondering if you have maybe defined your own tools or invented new tools for your own, and a tool is a wide definition, of course, because I think that when you perhaps invent a new tool, it also affects your visual style or your the personality of your work. So I'd be interested to hear about that.
One of the things that when I'm thinking about my work as a designer, and not just about my work, about maybe a lot of students' work, and that I see them as my colleagues, not different. I call it, there's a fast food, fast fashion, and I believe that now we are in the era of fast design. I call it like the instant designs, the McDonald's generation, that you can see. It's like in architecture that we used to see, the classic, buildings, the classic style, and how buildings had a lot of details, and then they're becoming more and more minimalist, and we don't have time. We're doing things very fast, even when we see posters that now, like online, we talked about, you start to speak about maybe about the Israeli kind of like what is the Israeli style, comparing maybe to the Polish style. So one of the things that I can see in a lot of like Israeli creators is the amount of details. We are doing a lot of things very fast, very putting it out, and then the time life of the poster, I don't know how long will it exist. Maybe it doesn't matter if we're talking about poster or about design in general. But if I'm thinking about, again, for a question about like my design or my colleagues, my students, my friends, I think we are working very fast. Even from a bit of the example that I showed, a lot of like very typography posters, graphics elements, something very maybe simple and bold, but this is kind of maybe the style that I recognize, or the trend. I don't know.
So I would just say that tools doesn't matter, and you don't design a computer, you design in your head. That's all.
More or less, this is what I wanted to say, is that the tool I develop most is my brain.
We are in the city of Bauhaus, so form follows the function, and I agree with this idea. No, I don't have any specific tool to create my specific style. I'm aware to have my style. I think that the subject is more important than style.
Thank you. Perhaps last question, then maybe we'll take one from the audience. If somebody has a burning desire to know something. Again, maybe to go back to public space, I think we live in Israel. The public space, like many other countries, is sometimes restricted, sometimes monitored, sometimes open. And you spoke about in your talks about this poster in the communist times where the designer, there was an unspoken agreement between the authorities and the designer, and he could do a little bit of criticism as long as it wasn't too obvious. And some of you grew up, I guess, pre-1989. And do you see a change in how the opportunities maybe in public space, and how perhaps it prescribes what one can do?
It's simple. The answer is simple. There is no public space right now. Everything is private. You have to pay for everything, for every place to display your poster. There are some big companies that took everything. There is a city of Warsaw that took the half. So you can try to put something illegally, but of course you can get a ticket and you can have some problems. So from my perspective, Lech, do you want to say something and answer the question? So there is no.
I think there is a very good poster there at the end. I think everybody.
This is new technology.
A new tool.
One game and one paper.
I think this really to be true. This comparison about a matter and the differences of time is really a question exactly to Majewski, because I don't remember that.
The only one thing I wanted to add is this, that we got some, say, ethical censorship. One was this with what I had with the pig, and the second is everything that is connected with a religion. It started to be really dangerous to use religious metaphor, and this is something that was not before.